Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial on installing a Polkadot validator. In this video, I'll be using the W3F Secure Validator package to install the validator, and I'll be using the Ansible approach. What is Ansible, you may ask? Well, Ansible is a deployment technology or tool that utilizes the SSH to allow a third party to issue SSH commands on your machine. So just breaking that down even simpler, basically you run a script that has someone else or a third party issue all the commands that you need to secure your validator and to install Polkadot. So I think it's quite nice that the W3F has done this. It definitely helps cut down a lot of the time in installing the validator, and it checks all those boxes with regards to security. So without further ado, let us get started. As you would see on the left, I have a checklist of things that we need to get done. So I'm going to check introduction as completed. So now let's get into creating an Ansible user. Just to give you a little idea, my environment, I'm using Ubuntu version 20.04, and this is a clean install. There's nothing else on it. It's just one user configured. Okay, so to create a new user, we use the command sudo space add user Ansible user. Now all sudo does is tells the operating system that we need to execute at an elevated level to add a user. That's the second part of the command, and the name of the user. So the name of the user in this case is Ansible_user, and we need to note that as we go forward in the tutorial. So once I do that, type this out, I hit enter. I'm asked to provide my credentials for my user. So I'm going to put that in now. And now I'm asked for a password for Ansible_user. I'm going to use the password user password. I have to type it in again. Okay, so now I need to fill out some details, but because Ansible_user it's just for this installation, I'm going to just hit the defaults or choose the defaults, and the defaults are whatever is in that square bracket, and it's nothing. So I'm just going to hit enter, 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 enter. Is this information correct? Why? Enter. Great. So I have a new user called Ansible_user, and I'm just going to clear this. All scripts will be found in the comments below. So I have a new user called Ansible_user, and that particular user needs to also use sudo to issue some of these commands, like you would have seen that I used when I was creating the user. So to add Ansible user to the sudo group, we use this command. So we use sudo to create sudo, sudo usermod -ag sudo Ansible_user. So you can always, if you didn't use Ansible_user, you can just change that to whatever you used. Enter, finished. Okay, so what we can do here, we can log out and log back in as the Ansible user using the password that you created, or I'm just going to do su, which is switch user, Ansible_user, and I hit enter. I have to put in the password for the user, which we designed as user password, and I'm in. Great. So we did this one, so I checked the box off, and now we have to secure SSH. So one of the things that we need to do, most importantly, it's to avoid using password authentication. Now, the reason why we must do that is that, or it is advised to do that, is that the security that you get from using a certificate, private key, public key, far outweighs the benefits that you get using a regular password. And I'm sure if you go online, you can get full details comparing regular password authentication versus using SSH certificate approach. So the first thing that we need to do is to generate our key pairs and keep, public, private. To do so, oops, I did it twice. We only need to do it once. We do SSH keygen -t RSA. I hit enter. It's generating. Now it asks me where I want to save the file. And what I would advise is that everything in the curved brackets is the default. Let's leave it as the default so that we don't encounter any issues as we go forward. So all you have to do is hit enter. It asks if we want to put a passphrase for the certificate, and I'm going to say yes. So I'm actually going to type in the passphrase. This is just an added level of security. And certainly, I don't advise using passwords like user password or a passphrase like passphrase. It's just for demonstration purposes only, and I hope that when you're following the tutorial, that you make the modifications you need for your own personal system, while not deviating too far from what is done on the screen. Okay, so right now I have my key pair. I'm going to clear the screen. The second thing that we need to do now that the key pair is created, we need to copy it or register it on the system. So to do so, we use this command ssh-copy ID. We put the name of the user at the IP or host name of the computer. In my case, it's sandbox.brentwood.solutions. And in my particular instance, I'm not using the default port, which is 22. I'm using 220, so I'm going to put that in there with the -p. If you're using the default port, you don't need to put -p. Yours will look like this. Okay, so I'm going to put it back, and I hit enter. Am I sure? Yes, I am. I hit enter, and that's it. Okay. Oops, I am asked for my password. Apologies. So this would be user password. And now I'm done. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to clear this again. And we move on to installing Ansible. So to do so, we need to use the sudo apt sudo apt install Ansible, and it will get the package and install it. We have to put the password for Ansible_user. So that's user password. Do I want to continue? Y, enter. It does its stuff. It's a lot of stuff it's doing. Okay, great, all done. So I'm going to clear the screen. Start back at the top. And now that we have installed Ansible, I want to go to the Git repository and pull the latest version of the secure validator. Okay, so what I would like to do first, if we look at our print working directory, because I switched user, I'm in the docs home folder. I want to get into the Ansible home folder. And the only reason I want to do this is so that everything that is involved with this installation is under the Ansible_user for compartmentalization. Right. There we go. So what I did was cd/home/Ansible user. So I went to my own house as Ansible user. I listed this, you know, out of habit, and then I printed the working directory just to confirm. So let's clear this. And what we're going to do now is a git to pull the latest package. Okay, so git make a copy clone on this system from that resource. We hit enter and that's it. So if I hit list now, I actually see something in my home folder. So what we need to do now is to go to the Ansible portion of the of this package and do some configurations. So I'm just going on the left here and I'm going to check installing Ansible, done. So to do so, we go cd Polkadot, and after you type POL, you just hit tab and it finishes it for you. And then you can do ANS tab, it finishes it for you, and you hit enter. So I'm going to do a list ls, and what I need to do is we need to actually get one of these YML files. We need to get an Inventory.yml, but there's none existing, but there's a sample. So what I would like to do is to take that sample and rename it to the live Inventory.yml. It gives me a head start, and I just need to change stuff versus creating everything from scratch. So to do so, you can do mv inventory.sample. I use the tab thing there, and I'm going to change it to inventory.yml. Okay, so if I do a list, I now see that there's that inventory.yml. I'm going to clear the screen, and then I'm going to do sudo nano inventory.yml. So what that does, I elevate myself. I use Nano. Nano is a text editor, and I'm saying open the inventory.yml file. Okay, so this is where we're going to do the configurations to make or to personalize this installation for your computer. So under validator -0, my recommendation is to remove that hyphen, because it no longer it produces some warnings. It's not an error, it doesn't stop the installation, but your installation has little warnings that says, hey, we may not be using that may be depreciated in the future, and so on. So just for simplicity, you can remove the hyphen. Under this first area, you're going to put your IP or your host name. So again, sandbox.brentwood.solutions. In this section, again, move the hyphen. These are any toggles or any switches or anything like that specific to your system. So one, it asks, okay, so this is the computer I'm going to, Sandbox. Who am I going to log in as? And you need to configure this with whatever user you created. I used Ansible user as the Ansible user, so it's that's how I'm going to fill it out. In my case, I also changed the port. Again, my port is 220. I need to specify that they're using Ansible_port. Okay, so this is the telemetry server, some logging. This allows us to configure another validator, but I don't wish to do so. So I'm just going to put the hashtag in front of it. Oops. And that comments it off. It's not going to execute. None of these. I don't want to do this. Okay. So now we have to actually say which are the children that are going to be executed. And all we are going to do is validator 0. So this validator 0 must match it must be consistent with what you used above. Okay, so now we get into some specifics. This project would be the name of your validator. So we're going to use docs, and I'm going to use sandbox. So it's a docs sandbox. Right, we go down a bit more. Here we can change if we wanted to do a Kusama. We follow this template. We put chain as Kusama and the network ID as KSMCC3. But I'm leaving it as a default. One item that we need to adjust, I don't know why this is set to true, to restart every hour. So I'm going to change that to false. Okay, we're all done. So we hit Control X. Do you want to save the buffer? We hit Y, and then we ask for the name and we hit enter. Okay, so now that we have that configured, let's see if our setup runs. All we need to do is ./setup.sh and we hit enter. Let's see. We are asked for the passphrase for the key, and that passphrase was passphrase. Now we are asked what password should I use for sudo, and that would be user password. We are asked again for the passphrase for the key, which is user, oops, my apologies, it is passphrase. Let me enter it again. I think I got it right that time. So we are seeing a lot of green stuff, which is good. We are seeing some yellow stuff, which is okay. And we are seeing some cyan stuff, which is also okay. The only thing that's not okay is red, and I'm not seeing any of that. So you may want to take note of some of the things that you're seeing happening here. All of those things are related to the installation. All of these things you may have had to do manually. So yeah, I think it's quite good. I'm very appreciative of the work that was done to create this package. So as we see, it's done. And what does this mean? If we go to telemetry, I'm just going to open it and I'm going to put it in a large screen. I'm hoping that if I type the word sandbox, and I am already seeing it, the validator is up and it is running. However, we do have a bit of a problem. So it's up, it's running, but it's not generating any blocks. If I were to go back one, we would notice that I'm on 0. My version is 0.8.2. And the current version is 0.28. And that's the reason why I'm not building any blocks. So let's get this solved. Okay, so I pull back up my checklist. I'm going to do check on installing Polkadot. And let's see what we can do to fix this version issue. One of the first things I'd like to do is I'd like to stop the existing validator. So to do so, I use sudo system control and I am going to, sorry, that's systemctl. I'm going to stop Polkadot.service. Sudo systemctl stop Polkadot.service. I hit enter. If I go back to telemetry and I type sand, I see nothing, which is good. So that's the first step. I'm just going to maximize this a bit. Actually, I'll leave it this way so it's in the center of the screen. And what we need to do, we need to go back to that inventory file and we need to give it the URL for the latest binary and the checksum. So we do sudo inventory let's do list. All right. I know what I did wrong. I did it's supposed to be sudo nano inventory.yml. So elevate, use the nano editor and open up this file. And if we look a little lower, let's go through our configs. Specify the Polkadot binary to install. Checksum is verified during execution. So you can go online, do a Google for Parity Tech Polkadot releases, and you get the latest release. Okay, so I'm going to do that so you can see. So we go back to here. I'm just going to do Polkadot parity. Let's see what comes up. Okay, so Polkadot parity git. To the right, we see the latest release. It's actually 0.8.28-1. I click on it. This one here is the URL for the binary, so I'm going to do copy link address. Of course, at the time, this is the latest version at the time of taping, and I think 0.29 is supposed to come out soon. So please adjust as you need. You know, I'm teaching you how to fish, so it's not about just spoon feeding. When we get the URL copied, we just paste it across. And to paste, we just right click. So you don't need to type the whole thing. The second bit of information we need is a checksum. So as you can see, I'm deleting everything except for this portion. And that information is in this file. So we actually have to click on it, download it, open it, copy this portion here, and paste with the right click. Okay, looks good. So Control X, Y, enter. And let's do this setup again. Okay, again, passphrase. sudo, this is user password. Okay, so I made a little mistake with my typing my password. Passphrase, there we go. Alright, so a little typo with the password. As we can see, it's just redoing the same process it was doing before, and it skips. If it did something before, it knows to skip it, so you may move a lot quicker. Okay, done. So now let's go across to telemetry. Sandbox popped up, version 0.28, and the blocks are building. So this is going to take you some time, but eventually those blocks will build, and you know, we can take things to the next steps. What I would like to capture in the next video is how we can install multiple instances of Polkadot or Kusama on the same machine, and how can we get the session key, which is important for the last step of the process, where we link our account to the session key. Okay, so that's it for now. Thanks for viewing. Take care and bye.